Hi, it's Keith. Welcome back. Hey, this week we're talking to a CIO in Switzerland about artificial intelligence and a little bit about failing to succeed. Give a listen. So, Greg, welcome. And if you could share with the viewers a little bit, just a little bit of your background and the interesting path you've taken to get there in Switzerland.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. Yeah, I'm an American living in Europe, and yeah, so I've spent about the first 10 years of my career in sales and marketing roles. But I was a marketing major in college with a computer science minor, and so I had always been sort of somewhere in this intersection between computer science and commercial and sales and marketing. And then just over the years, it kind of as you probably would guess, as IT has kind of moved from being a back office function, very much focused on efficiency and productivity of supply chains and finance, it really kind of got thrust in the spotlight around it being a way to help with customer experience and sales and commercial support. So that really is sort of how I fell into the IT role. It wasn't something I originally set out to do. But I've been with a number of bigger companies in pharma, biotech, life sciences, consumer goods, high tech. And then I decided to take a run at agriculture. So I joined Syngenta Group. We're the largest agro-sciences input company in the world. And we're based here in Switzerland. So I moved with my wife and 3 kids 2 years ago, and it's been an amazing experience.
That's a lot of changes all happening at the same time. So, congratulations on that. Hey,
Thanks.
so share with me a little bit about your role as CIO and CDO. Are those two separate roles, or is it really just combined into one?
Yeah, yes and yes. I mean, I think the way I would describe it is, information technology is something that anyone who's a CIO knows it's increasingly becoming an important part of how companies compete, transform, service customers, and just operate. But in the agricultural industry, it's just getting started in terms of impacting farming. So I sort of stand at the intersection of being responsible for the use of technology and application of technology, both helping to transform and digitally transform Syngenta like many other CIOs might do, but then also how you use software and hardware, computer and data science to really transform the way agriculture is done, which is what our customers do. So I think the way to think about it is I'm responsible for technology both inside the company, but then also how it's used outside the company to support how people work with our products and services.
Very cool. And when you think about like digital projects, kind of explain a little bit in your experience, how does that go? Do you go out looking for problems, or do you find solutions, then you come in-house and look for problems? I mean, how do you identify what to start going after first?
Yeah, on creating software that sort of helps the farmer community, I think it's really kind of a combination of our teams that are in the market. So the country leadership that we operate in 90 countries, and so in every country you have a crop protection business. In many countries you have a seed business. You might have a fertilizer business in some countries, and so as they're out meeting with customers, what they're seeing is that agriculture is changing, and as the generation of farmers change, right? So if you think about farmers, no matter where they are in the world, it's almost as much of an art as it is a science. A lot of the decisions in terms of how farmers make decisions around how to produce their crop is based on generational experience, right? It's what my father did, my grandfather did, my uncle did. It tends to be a family affair. And I think with the younger generation of farmers, you're seeing them really start to shift because they're digitally native. They're starting to shift towards, well, I know that I've been working with this seed company for a long period of time, but I feel like that I want to see some data that because these seeds are they have genetics, and I know how and you guys know from all of your R&D trials how those genetics differ in different climates, and I want to make sure that this product will work on my field. So they're much more data oriented. And so that fundamentally changes sort of how our sales teams are selling. And so when they start seeing that people are asking sort of evidentiary questions around how our portfolio might work in the real world, it starts to translate into how to use computer and data science to be able to not only help customers make the right choices of which of our products make sense to buy, but also how best to use them. Like when you spray a fungicide, for example, is actually really important. If you're 2 days early, you'll waste your money. If you're 2 days late, a disease can come in and take over your field. So this intersection between using data around how our products get used and consumed is obviously pretty important to our customers, but also important to the Syngenta employees that are out there working with customers. So we're typically getting patterns of questions around types of software products and features to make or to build that really help our customers in some way, shape, or form. But they really are coming from this generational turnover and change of growers, and at the same time, new technology continues to progress, and you're seeing satellite images get more and more sharper. You're able to see things on a field from a satellite that maybe you couldn't 10 years ago that now you can. So you also have the technological change that's bringing about things that really weren't possible before.
And so in that, you kind of imply a little bit that it's really some communication. You're communicating with, the guy in charge of sales, maybe the guy in charge of operations. Is that different than it used to be? Are you engaging with other senior executives more than you used to?
Yeah, I think for sure, because technology is now like at the center point of changing the way the company makes money, right? I mean, if you think about our core business, it's selling chemicals or selling seeds. But I think over time, and that there's certain tried and true ways that works. But now, if your customers are starting to change their patterns of buying and use differently, that does fundamentally change the business works. And I think 10 years ago or so in IT, when you were interfacing with the front office of the company, right, the sales and marketing leadership, it was probably around some pretty, sort of safe places like a Salesforce automation system, right? How am I going to use tools to manage my Salesforce or do incentive compensation? So again, I think a lot of the tools have moved from, or the use of technology has kind of moved from productivity of how employees work to fundamentally changing the way you interact with customers and the way your customers think about, purchase, and use your product. So I think that transition takes sort of the IT capability from being almost a necessary evil, right? Because a lot of people who are CIOs will know that as you interface with executives, many of them are it's just not their comfort zone. And so they kind of, if they could avoid having to deal with it, they would, and they would just delegate it down to maybe the younger people in the company that really were energized by technology. But now it's unavoidable because it's fundamentally altering the way many companies compete. And obviously, if you're in senior leadership roles, I mean, this is the whole ballgame. So for sure, I think that the relevance of IT has changed a lot over the last 10 years. And of course, that means the relationship between the IT leadership and the executive leadership has also evolved as well.
Yeah. And can you share a little bit about what kind of technologies are you seeing that are actually really contributing to solving problems and creating business growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of trends that we see. I mean, because we're dealing in farming, you're typically going to have, smart machines. So I think we're seeing a pivot from, you think about like a John Deere tractor. We're at this inflection point, almost like, where we were in the early 2000s, moving from a Nokia smartphone to an iPhone, right? So these machines are becoming increasingly smarter. They are becoming increasingly autonomous. So there is this evolution of edge computing, being able to have autonomous devices that have algorithms loaded right on the edge on the farm. They're being powered by machine learning algorithms, computer vision. So these are cameras looking at crops and plants and trying to make decisions about them. So I think everything from artificial intelligence, computer vision, cameras, satellite technology, as well as the evolution of sort of edge computers on smart machines. I think these are, I think of them a little bit like it's a recipe of a cake, right? It's flour, sugar, eggs, and you can mix them in different configurations, will make many different things possible. So I think those are some of the major trends that we see, which are just making things that previously were impossible now possible.
And when you identify a problem and you go out and you start finding some technologies, I mean, how do you think about putting together a presentation for your other senior executives and kind of outline this new plan, a new way of doing business, new work processes, and a return that might come from this? How do you kind of organize that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually think and I know a lot of people listen to this are CIOs, and I think the temptation in a role like this, where you're the head, you're the chief of the use of technology in the company, is to feel like that you have to go out in front and do a presentation and tell people, hey, here's, I'm the thought leader and here's how I think it would go. I've found a lot more success really just iterating and listening and working with the executives to come up with the ideas together. I think it's probably dangerous. Number one is as a IT executive, you're not selling your product for a living. I mean, some CIOs maybe have spent time in their company carrying a bag, carrying a quota, carrying a P&L, but many of us haven't, at least in the existing companies we're at. So you don't truly sort of understand the business maybe as well as you think you do, and you've got to be careful of coming across being too assumptive that you know what customers will or won't do. So the best thing is, rather than doing a presentation, is just engaging someone in a conversation for possibility. Hey, here's some technology. I was talking to a friend at XYZ company, and they're using a pharmaceutical company using technology to do cheminformatics to be able to do in silico modeling and discovery of new chemical compounds. We have a chemistry department too. I think that we should actually talk about what that might make possible. And I find that engaging in the conversation and pulling people along with you so that they can make the idea better, is you actually get more enrollment than if you try to come in with a ticked and tied presentation that you built with Accenture, and you're going to like unveil it on the company and everybody is going to throw flowers at your feet. It's just not not my experience. And sometimes you may have the right idea that just takes longer to get it pushed through that way, but then also sometimes you don't have the idea quite right. And you're better off to really seek to understand what you don't know about the customer segment, the market you're in, your competition, and really do that with the people who are living it day to day. And then you are trying to sort of assume that you know what things are, and then you might end up losing credibility because you say something that might not be accurate or things like that. So it's always better to iterate and brainstorm with the executives together, rather than trying to go in your hole, develop the PowerPoint, and then unveil it.
Hope you heard a few things that triggered some new thinking for you. We do these conversations on IT topics weekly, so please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you get updates on new content, as well as you can post comments and, more importantly, suggest topics that you'd like us to address. You can see that we have some pretty amazing resources. So please let us know how we can help you on your upcoming digital transformation and enterprise IT projects. Thanks very much. Until next time.